Alright, welcome back to 11.2, Simplifying Radical Expressions. So this was something that was found in your textbook. It's just a list of all the properties for radical exponents as well as radical properties. So here we see product of power. So essentially if we have two things with the same base, we can add the exponents. Here, if I have the same bases being divided, I can subtract the exponents. If I have a power where a base to a certain power is being raised to another power, we can multiply the exponents. Power of a product, we can also distribute that exponent to what's inside the parentheses. And the same goes for whether they're being multiplied or if they're being divided. Last but not least, we know that there's radical properties, so product property of roots. Essentially, I can raise, if I have the nth root of a times b, I can take the individual nth root of the first part times the individual nth root of the second part. And I can also distribute that to if I'm dividing. So this is just something to keep in mind. You don't have to memorize all of them, but it's good to keep them as a reference because we will be using them for the first explain. So one of the first problems we see here in our textbook, Part A and Part AA and AB. So I'm going to do a problem as an example. So here I have 6 to the 1/7 power times 6 to the 3/7 power. So what I could do is add my exponents. And essentially 1 plus 3 would be about 4. I'm not going to add my denominators, so that would be 6 to the 4 over 7. Oh. Alright. So go ahead and try out this one. I'll kind of set it up for you, but I want you to try this out. Simplify it if you can. Now, I didn't simplify this out 4/7 because I can't reduce that. I can't do anything with that. But let's say if I got something like 4/8, I could reduce that that fraction. Or let's say if I got, I don't know, 12 over 2. I could reduce that. In fact, 12 divided by 2, I believe, is 6. So it just depends. If we can reduce it, we will. If we can't, we'll leave it. Alright. Next thing we're going to do is, oh, I see the same bases here, but not the same exponents. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and actually subtract the top fraction by the bottom fractional exponent. Let's go ahead and work that out. So that would be 2b to the 3 take away 1 is 2 over 5. Again, if I can reduce it, I will. If I can't, though, that's as good as it gets. Alright, so try that one out for letter B. And go ahead and see if you can work that out. Alright, moving on to our next example. This is actually pulled right from your textbook. So here they're asking us to actually use our, so here it looks a little complicated. We're going to take one step at a time. So the first thing they do here is they do subtract their exponents. And just looking back to what that is called when we subtract our exponents. So subtracting our exponents is quotient of powers. So quotient of powers. The next thing they do is they ask us to simplify it. So 4 take away 2 would be 1. Keep the denominators the same. And we are going to simplify. So we did that. We simplified that a little further. We are then going to, sorry, that's supposed to be a 2. We are then going to distribute this exponent that's outside the parentheses to what is inside. So looking back at our reference sheet as to what that shows when we distribute an outside exponent to what's inside, we would distribute an outside exponent to what is inside. That's called the power of quotient. Power of quotient. And we're going to go ahead and then multiply these two exponents together, as you can see. So we're going to multiply these two exponents together. We're going to look back to see what exactly is that when we multiply two exponents together, and it looks like that's called the power over power property. We're going to go ahead and simplify that, so that's 2/3 right there times 3 over 2. So 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. And 6 divided by 6 would be 1. So that'd be y to the first power. And then if you need to, pause right here and go ahead and work out what 16 to the 3 over 2 power would be. And if you work that out, that should be about 64. Okay? So let's continue on with part B. So again, let's go ahead and work that out. That would be distributing that outside to what's inside, called the power of a product property. So we're going to multiply, distribute that 2/3 exponent to the 27 and to the x to the 3/4. We are then going to figure out what the power of a power is. So that would be the 3/4 times 2/3. So 3/4 times 2/3. So that would be 6 over 12, which can reduce. So let's reduce it. That would reduce to 1/2. We're going to simplify this even further. Take some time in your calculator to work that out. And that would be 9x to the 1/2 power. Before we continue on, I actually want you to stop here and try and do the problems in your packet. I know we don't see that sign that says stop, but do the problems in your packet before we move on to explain 2, okay?